I'm Mark Bass. I'm the son of artist Sam Bass.
Greg Stumpf. I own Off Axis Paint and got to work with Sam Bass for quite a few years.
I'm Harris Liu, owner of Liu Creative, a NASCAR artist and friend of Sam Bass.
What was your first introduction to Sam?
Yeah, take that one.
Well, considering he's my father, I don't really have an introduction. I was just kind of born into it.
Or a really great answer.
I mean, what else am I supposed to say?
Yeah, you got a break on that, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, how'd you guys meet? You went to the gallery, right?
So yeah, I met him in 2016, right after I guess I had been at NASCAR, my first big job in the industry, for 4 or 5 months, and met him at the Coke 600 that weekend. But my introduction to Sam and who he was my first program cover in '97. My parents took me to my first race, went with some family friends who got some tickets, and it's actually right here, but I got this program at the Winston in '97, and it was the thing that made me want to really draw NASCAR stuff and do car art, and there's an article in here about him and talking about his career, and it kind of was the thing that let me know that there was a possibility to have a career in art and a career in NASCAR as an artist. So it's one of those things that kind of sparked where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. But the first time I met him was 2016. I just kind of stumbled into his gallery, had never been, wanted to go. It was right by Credentials, and there he was sitting there, and we sparked up a conversation, and he gave me the exclusive backroom tour, and both found out we were artists, and
The tour everyone.
Yeah,
the exclusive tour
the
everyone
tour
got.
I later found out everyone got, but we both sparked up the conversation that we were artists, and then on the way out there were his 2 drawings of his Mustangs, and that was kind of like we talked about Mustangs and bonded through that, and by the time I was out of there I had his phone number and exchanged information and bought a poster of the Wheaties car, which was what Dale drove at my first race, and first thing I had him sign for me, and then we kind of became friends from there.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know the Wheaties car was your first.
Yeah, that's
race.
the only car I saw Dale Earnhardt drive in person, and
pretty
that was
sick.
a huge deal for Sam getting to design a Wheaties box, and so that was another kind of element of, that race was a huge race for Sam. He presented that painting to Darrell Waltrip on the front stretch, and I'm a 3.5, 4-year-old kid with my dad's arms looking through the fence at him, and it was pretty cool to get to meet him and then tell him those stories and let him know how much that meant to me and how much that was kind of a part of my genesis, and it's weird how that all kind of came together.
I met him at a racetrack, so like in his element, like out at the track. So I moved here in like 2012, and I knew the Allgaiers pretty well. Always been a Sam Bass fan, obviously. If you're in art or racing, that's kind of your hero. So I was with Dorothy Allgaier, Justin's mom, and we were walking down pit road after qualifying or something. And she said, "Have you ever met Sam Bass?" And I was like, "No." Like that's I'm still so new to the sport, like barely getting a hot pass into the pits. Like I'm definitely not walking up to this guy. And she said, "Well, I'm going to introduce you." So I went over there, and I don't have the love of Mustangs like you guys do, but we connected like on the musical stuff, so guitars and stuff like that. So we talked forever, and I think that was the coolest thing of like what all of us kind of connected with. It wasn't just racing; it was all these other little avenues and stuff. So I think that's the coolest part of like each one of our story. And then obviously I went on to paint all these guitars with him, which was way cooler than any racing thing. Is just meeting all these musicians and being able to paint the guitars for the Daytona 500 and Cook 600 and stuff like that. So I don't know, it's cool stories. Yeah, definitely.
What's your favorite Sam Bass work?
Oh man, I don't know. There's a lot in that book, so go ahead. I'll let you. Or Mark, do you have one?
Off the top of my head, I would have to say All-Star Wars, because I would come home from elementary school, walk through the gallery, and that's just always the one that would catch my eye. It was unique, and it would, it's outside of the racetrack.
So I feel like me and Harris are pretty envious, so you just got to get off the school bus and just go through the gallery like
that
it's
was everyday life. Yeah.
like it's nothing. But I don't know. It's like when you're growing up, like being around my dad, like I didn't care what he did, or
Right,
like
yeah.
it's what your life is,
It's
and that's
kinda
all you've known. So I'm sure.
Biting me now, but
Yeah. Well, I think it's cool that you like respect it more as we
oh yeah, it's
as
like
you go on. Yeah.
What was your favorite paint scheme? Because I know you got that one too.
I do.
The Spider-Man one?
Oh, I wouldn't say that's my favorite,
Oh, okay.
but it's up there just because that was a large part of my childhood as well.
Yeah.
But
Did you watch him like work on them?
no. Well, I probably wasn't old enough to
Oh,
recall it. It was Spider-Man 3 at the time, so
You're that young.
yeah. It was still like what 2007.
Yeah. Oof.
Which I think that's some of the coolest stuff is like the brands he got to work with, the movie properties. I mean,
Yeah.
he did all the stuff for Talladega Nights, which is unreal. The Laughing Clown Malt Liquor, the Wonder Bread, all of it. But my favorite piece is probably the 97 Winston or Champion's Choice, which was the portrait of Dale with the Wheaties car. And Dale didn't actually have a Wheaties suit, I don't think, and so he's illustrated in the Wheaties suit with the Wheaties car, and it was used for the box as well. So that whole kind of program of him being able to do the car, the box, the art piece, and just having that all come together as the first NASCAR driver on a box of Wheaties, and it be his artwork as the featured thing on the box. I think that was the coolest thing of just his art went so much further than NASCAR. I mean, he was working with Pop Secret Popcorn, just the brands that are in the aisle. You couldn't walk down an aisle at a point in the 90s and 2000s without seeing some of Sam's artwork. So it wasn't just stuff you could hang on the wall. It was in your cabinet. It was on your counter. It was everywhere and anywhere. So that's really like the moment to me where they could have put his artwork on toilet paper and it would have sold. And I think that's just the coolest thing ever.
Definitely. I think the three of us have been kind of tasked to go through this whole warehouse of Sam's, basically his life, of different eras, and I think that's the coolest part of seeing, coffee cans and Monopoly boards and like stuff we didn't even know existed, and seeing his logo on it, it just kind of shows you like, I don't know, just as me and Harris as entrepreneurs in the art world, you just see like, oh, okay, we're pretty like, we think we're doing okay, and then you see like that kind of stuff, and you're like, okay, we're so far behind, it's not even funny. So. I think my favorite paint scheme is just like on a car. It's probably all the Bobby Allison stuff. I love all the Miller cars and stuff, and I love the story of like him just going and like hanging outside the fence and like trying to get Bobby's attention, and then him just being like, oh yeah, design my car like it's that easy back in the day where you can just there's no PR people you have to go through or giant loops, and I think that's the coolest is like he wanted it so bad he just literally went and stood on the fence and. Until it happened, and I think that's pretty cool to start your career that way. I think my favorite painting is probably the Dale Earnhardt one. I can't remember the name of it.
Black Attack?
Yeah. It's a whole story in the book, obviously, but he did this whole painting, which relates to my life so much, I think is why I love it. It's just another painting, but he did this whole painting for Dale, gave it to him, and basically Dale told him it was the wrong color or it wasn't right. He wanted it like people will love it, but it needed to be in silver. And I'm like, I get that so much because we'll work on a helmet for 40 hours, and you think it's the best piece of art you've ever done. You poured your heart and soul into this, and you show it to some race car driver who doesn't completely understand art, and they tell you it's wrong basically. So I mean, I get that all the time, not as much, but it does happen, and I think that. Whole story kind of like humanizes Sam as like he wasn't like this perfect art, like like some things didn't get received well, like so I think that's my favorite thing is just like maybe it's not a mistake, but just I don't know, kind of puts him in a box that you didn't think you'd ever be in.
Yeah, I mean, and back to going and going through the warehouse and archive and stuff, just the amount of unused and versions of paint schemes that. We all know and love now, but there was 10, 15 versions leading up to the one that everybody loves that you realize, okay, nothing much has changed in the past 30 years, and he was dealing with some of the same stuff that we were dealing with. And
they're physical drawings, too.
Yeah.
It's not like a deleted file on Illustrator or whatever. It's like physical pieces that didn't get used. Like
He was
that's the
having to go
coolest.
back and redo, hey, make this one little change, and then it's the whole thing.
Yeah, not just 2 clicks
Yeah.
and
His
change the color.
His cut and paste was literally cutting and pasting.
Yeah, I think that's pretty wild.
Well, bouncing back to you asking me what my favorite scheme is, if you talk about the files and the warehouse, it probably is the original Rainbow Warrior, just because you open it up and everybody else's jaws drop and you're like, oh yeah, it's been there,
Yeah.
That's just the whole time.
I think that's one of the coolest things in the warehouse too, is when you do open the drawers. You've seen all these prints for so long, and your eye kind of goes to those colors of like what a printer can print, and then you see the originals, and there's so much more detail and vibrant, and like you can't, like, you learn to take a picture of it and send it to somebody, but you still cannot.
Doesn't capture.
Yeah, it doesn't capture how like truly beautiful those pieces are,
And like, a lot of them are in plastic, so you can touch them, but they're like feeling. It's like Braille almost, just the brush strokes and the paint.
Yeah.
And the car is in one of these pieces. It's literally, he drew that on something else, cut it, pasted it. So you can feel the cuts, you can feel the layers, and like we use layers in Photoshop now, and he was literally layering things with glue and X-Acto knives.
Yeah, you get a much more deeper respect on just how tough things were, 20 or 30 years ago.
Computers.
Yeah.
There's been tons of artists and designers involved with NASCAR. What separates Sam from them?
Go ahead.
I think it's one of the things I talked about earlier, which was just his the breadth of work and the amount of different things he did. He worked with Brooks and Dunn, he worked with Kiss, he worked with, he was in the music world, he was in, the NASCAR world, he was in consumer goods through NASCAR. There was just, the amount of paint schemes that he made is huge. And people look at his paintings, they look at his artwork, but then they don't realize that half the field in 1993 and 1994 was designed by him, not only in Cup Series, but Busch Series and, anything with wheels on it pretty much. It's just, the breadth of work is insane, how he was able to foster that many things and continue to cover all the bases that he covered. I think it's absolutely mind-blowing that if you have a favorite paint scheme from the 90s, 8 times out of 10 it was probably a Sam Bass paint scheme. And it's just, the things that I've learned that he did, even as big of a fan and as big of a, historian as I pride myself in being, going through the warehouse, there's so much that I didn't even know. So I think that's the mind-blowing thing, is that, he was the first officially licensed artist, so he was able to produce all the paintings, and he was able to do all the things officially and sell his work the way he could sell it. And then just, everything else that he did on top of it, working with artists, working with bands, working with brands and products. It was just, it's huge. I'm in, like Greg said, I look at what I'm doing now and I'm like, if I could ever get anywhere close, like, I would be a happy person. So it's crazy just seeing what he did and how much he did with the time that he had in the sport.
Again, his name wasn't just Sam Bass artist; it was Sam Bass first officially licensed NASCAR artist.
Yeah.
Which that's pretty big. I don't know the whole story on that or how it came about, but anytime you're the only guy who can officially license something, I think you're doing something definitely right.
Absolutely.
So I think when you got a piece and you made it in the industry, like, you got a Sam Bass artwork, you didn't really make it until you had that. So I think that's the coolest thing. And you got, like you said, the official tour and everything else. You got that personal touch of Sam with the artwork. You got a piece of him as it went out the door. And that's the coolest thing. Our shop. I don't design every single helmet that comes out of here. I don't paint every single helmet that comes out of here, but I try to kind of be the person with it, but I think when you get a Sam Bass piece, it's so much more than just a name on it. You get, a literal piece of someone's, heart and soul they're putting into the artwork.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna go.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, not to pause, but just his personality, I would say, sets him apart from everybody else, because even though you could be just a random person walking in the gallery and he would make you feel like you're a part of the team. So just anything like that.
Did you ever have to clean brushes or anything? Like,
No, but you
is
know.
it like a chore? Like, didn't do well in school, so you had to like.
No. I never
Clean
got
the
disciplined
gallery.
that hard because there was about 100,000 brushes to go through. But
So you can sand helmets in here next time if you missing out on that.
sign me up.
What's your favorite Sam Bass memory or story?
Y'all go first.
No,
I
go
gotta
ahead.
think. I gotta think.
I have to think also. Sorry.
Oh, Harris, you got one.
All right. So, in 2018, me and my longtime girlfriend Emily, who's now my business partner in Lou Creative, we're getting our first house together, and she had heard the stories of Sam. She'd heard the story when I met him, and we talked about the Mustang drawings, and she had seen the Mustang drawings. Well, behind my back, she reached out to Sam and said, hey, could you do drawings of Harris's cars in the same style that you did drawings of your cars? Because Sam had 2 drawings. He had his, what is it, 72 coupe? I think it's a 72 coupe white with black stripes was his first Mustang. And then he had his white with black stripes 05, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he had those 2 together in the same style and art piece. Well, I have an 87 convertible and a 93 hatchback. And behind my back for like 3 months in 2018, Emily was working with him to get him to draw my cars. And so like out of the blue, I'm at work one day and I get a call from Carrie, who was Sam's, I guess, right-hand woman, amazing person. She showed up at NASCAR where I worked at the time and presented me with 2 pen and ink hand-drawn pictures of my cars. And it's probably my most prized possession, the coolest surprise I've ever gotten, the coolest thing that I own personally. If anything ever happens, if there's a fire, it's the first thing I'm grabbing before I jump out the window.
Grabbing them as you're walking through now.
But to have my artistic hero draw my cars, just unreal. And Emily fell in love with his pen and ink work, his black and white stuff, and so our house is littered with his pen and ink work, and the 2 pieces over the TV right in the living room are my cars, and they go with. We have a Hall of Dales of just his pen and inks of Earnhardt and Jarrett. So we've got a bunch of his stuff, but those are the coolest, and getting to talk to him about how he did them, and we got a handwritten note about him, and I don't know, it's just it was one of the coolest things to have someone that I looked up to for so long that to draw something of mine, and I never would have thought as a kid, trying to mimic his artwork, trying to be like him, trying to follow his career path to become friends with him, and then for him to draw my cars. It's unreal that they are real and that I have them, and it's something I'll hold on to and cherish forever.
I like the note on that. It's probably the coolest, Like, not only is it not like you didn't have to write that note, but it's like, hey, this is how I did it, and this is what it's for,
And the note's in the fire safe. That's
yeah.
So I won't have to grab that, but I'll have to grab the pieces that are hanging above.
I think that's probably some of my biggest memories is I have a text log of advice or anything else that I could possibly need, because he was in motorsports, but he was in art, which I don't think anyone else really understands that world besides us 3 sitting here, and when it's 2 or 3 a.m. and you're still working on stuff and projects, like no one really understands that. They're just you go to bed earlier, or you start your day earlier or whatever, no one really understands the real struggles that you go through, and I think that's probably some of the best memories I have of just any text of me complaining at 2 or whatever, and he's still up and he's like, you did ask for this, and I'm like, you are right, it kind of like humbles you and brings you back down to the ground, because this is what I started out to do, and you really can't complain when you're doing some stuff that if I would have asked myself 10 years ago, where I am now, like it's you put it in a lot of perspective for me, and I think that's some of the best memories, and definitely having like this desk here, and like it not being mine, but still, Denise's, and having her, put it in here just as like a basically a presence in this shop of like, the person he was, the artwork, and having that as a constant reminder. So instead of it being in a closet somewhere. I think it's pretty cool that it's seen here, and any design meetings that we have are done right here in this room. So,
sharing the same household with him, I mean,
that's a pretty good, yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, he did kind of. I'm his offspring.
Yeah.
You know, sharing the same household with him, you know, it's a lot more than art and NASCAR to me. It's, you know, he would sit at the end of my bed and play guitar. You know, we would hum him the tune, and he'd play it on guitar, and we just sat there in awe of like how he did that. And now, I tried to get him to teach me guitar, and that lasted a good 5 minutes before I gave up. And here I am today, and I've been playing guitar for like 2 years. So just like stuff like that, it's, you know.
It's weird how it comes around. Right?
Yeah, I don't try to like, I'm not trying to be a copy paste of Dad.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, you know, I reminisce.
Well, I feel like you can't help it. Like it's nature, right?
Yeah,
like that's just kind of the person you become.
That's a great goal to have.
Yeah.
You know, something to chase, and he is my hero. So.
I'm still baffled that he wasn't critiquing your art more when we were bringing it home, honestly.
Probably should have taken his word. I'd probably be a lot farther along now, but, you know.
I hate that he passed on the Mustang trait, too.
Come on,
It's
man.
rough.
Hey, he had a Camaro for 1 year, but.
Too much for you.
Well, he had that big Chevrolet partnerships. He probably got a discount.
Yeah, it's very true, yeah.
Actually, no, he traded all paintings for that Camaro.
I mean, that's a pretty good discount.
That's a pretty good discount, too, yeah. It cost him $3.99.
Yeah, if I could paint helmets and just trade them off for a new Camaro, I'd be fine with that. So.
Between that and the S10, he probably didn't pay for a Chevrolet. Right?
I think he was more fond of Mustangs, though.
Yeah. Poor guy. Whatever.
You're right, though. You could text him at any point in time and you'd get a reply.
Honestly, yeah. Up until, you know, I think that's the biggest thing I take away too is like we did that last, Daytona 500 guitar where he designed it and we painted it here and he even built it, you know, and up until the time he passed away, constantly working, and I think that's not working for himself, working for other people to make sure they were taken care of, you know, which that's the biggest thing I kind of take away from it is like, no matter what, like, wasn't a sick day, never complained. And always, making sure people got taken care of, and that's the biggest thing I take away.
Yeah. We'd be texting at like 2 o'clock in the morning, be like, "I'm sorry for keeping you up so late." I'm like, I'm an artist too, right? I was gonna be up anyway.
Yeah, it's the only time people will leave you alone. That's the only time you get things done.
It's the peaceful moments.
Yeah. Honestly, I think we just covered it all. Like, keeping that legacy alive is kind of the thing we're doing now. Is where we're making, Mark's taking over all the merch and taking, this warehouse project over where there's just a ton of old artwork or, old things that, people can hold on to. We have this whole, basically, treasure chest of, Sam's life, and
I've been in there 75 times, and I find something new every time.
Yeah, literally.
It never fails.
And then once we find something new, the three of us are trying to figure out the story, behind it. I think that's the coolest part. It's literally like a national treasure like story. Like you're just kind of trying to put all these pieces and puzzles together, and then we bring in Denise, who usually has the answer to most of our questions.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it is kind of like these riddles that we're just kind of figuring out, and pieces of the story are constantly missing because we just don't know what happened to a lot of these things, but it's just the coolest to keep finding things out, and I think it's way cool that Mark's taken over everything and just really pushing that name and having this whole gold logo and kind of being like a whole new era, for this younger generation who, might not know who he was or kind of what he stood for in the sport.
Yeah, I mean, I think, stuff like this that we're doing right now that we can spread, his word and who he was and bring it to, the next generations. I know there are generations like us that grew up with the artwork that lust after having a piece of Sam Bass's work or, look at him for inspiration and making sure that we preserve that and keep putting that out into the world and, remind these people that may not know how important he was and how much of the sport that you love was because he made it beautiful. And I think that's the duty we have as artists and as stewards of his work and his properties, that he made it possible for us to have a career, and he made it possible for us to do the things that we do. So how do we take that and show other people? How do we, open the eyes of the next young artist to go, hey, if they can do this and they followed him, we can follow them. And we keep building the community and make sure that, NASCAR artists get the respect they deserve and get the opportunities that they deserve, and just kind of keep, pushing his philosophies forward into new generations and into new properties and pieces.
And being the first artist in the Hall of Fame, hopefully one day.
Yes, yes.
Like, that's pretty cool, you know?
He should already be in there, but that's
Yeah.
definitely the goal, is trying to push him into there, because, half the stuff in the Hall of Fame wouldn't be there without him designing it. The Rainbow Warrior car, a lot of the Dale Earnhardt stuff. The Wheaties box is in the Hall of Fame, but there's no credit to who the artist was on the plaque.
That's one of the coolest things to think about, is like whether or not you know Sam Bass, you do know Sam Bass.
Yeah.
People tell me, oh, I love Talladega Nights, and I'm like, well, he made those schemes and
Yeah.
just anything they talk about.
Fingerprints all over it.
Right,
Yeah.
everywhere.